A new hero has been introduced and is available on the PTR, and after that, we'll take a look at the bans for heroes in both the Overwatch League and in Ranked.
Games canceled again this weekend. Will we ever have any games in the Overwatch League? I'm Avast, this is Jayne, and welcome to Contested. What's up, guys? We are in the Frontier Communication Studio here in Dallas, Texas. I am Avast. This is Jayne.
Hello, friends. Good morning.
And we're another episode of Contested here, our second episode.
Yeah.
And a nice new topic to talk about our nice new episode, Echo.
Yeah, brand new
hero on the list.
Brand new hero has come out, or as I like to call her, the Pharah rework. Pretty crazy hero. Everybody thought that it was either going to be a tank or a support, but then we got our 17th DPS added to the game. And
I'm salty about that.
You're salty
I'm salty about that, not going to lie. I'm a little unhappy. But it is an interesting kit
At
still.
the same time, they're banning all the supports in Ranked, and they banned 2 tanks this week, so they're just happy with the DPS. And
That's fine.
This does make me a little bit more curious about whether or not they're doing those bans kind of experimentally or randomly, because they had that experimental mode when they're doing the 3 DPS and then the 1 tank. It does seem like they're favoring DPS a lot, and with this hero, just from the little that we've seen so far, seems a lot of fun to play. So a lot of love being shown to the DPS role so far.
It's kind of crazy how strong her kit is at reveal, because like you talked about, we didn't know if it was going to be a tank or a support. Comes out that it's a DPS. I was a little upset. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little upset over this. And then I saw the kit for Echo, and I couldn't believe, as I saw it over and over again, that how much utility she has and how strong her ult is, because she gets like an extra life pool after she replicates a hero and can build like 3 ults in the span of 1 life while on that hero. And then if you kill that replicated hero, she still comes back and she's still in the fight. So you have like an extra health pool and extra life,
it's
and
like
you build ults.
It's man. It's like multiple
insane.
ults.
It's legitimately insane. I've never, like, what a crazy stacked kit.
So let's go through the kit full on, like from top to bottom. So first off, she's got a little bit of a shotgun thing, but a shotgun with no fall off. So it's called the tri-shot, and it's 3 little pellets, and each of them, again, no fall off, go off, and pretty significant damage to the headshot. It's kind of like Doomfist cannon, but a little bit better there.
Strong.
And then one of the big things, her passive with the glide. So she could, when she's gliding, she also gets a horizontal movement bonus. So if you're near any sort of edge, like think, Eichenwald, for example, if you just kind of like weave above those edges, you can pretty much get your 50% glide bonus while just walking normally. So she's got faster move speed, good glide, and then her flight, a lot like Pharah, gives her a nice leap forward, and then gets to glide around, and she can stay in the air pretty much indefinitely if she just uses that flight ability to get some extra altitude, and then glides around and can just kind of flit around all in the sky.
Better Pharah.
Just way
actual better Pharah.
And no reason that you can't have Pharah as well.
But it's crazy because of, like, you see actually very talented Pharah players, like, you see players that are very defined by Pharah, like Mangachu, come out and be like, it's like, that's what we really needed, was another Pharah counter, because she's just a better Pharah.
And not only is she a better Pharah, but she actually pretty much hard counters current Pharah. So it's going to be really, really difficult for Pharah really to get anything done unless you're being paired with the Echo for some reason. But even then, there's no reason at any point in the future we should be seeing Pharah in pro matches unless it's something to do with, spamming out a bunker composition. Pharah still has higher continuous, like sustained DPS output, but in terms of actually fighting and as a DPS matchup, like the pulse bombs, I'm not sure what you actually call them for Echo yet.
I can't remember what the name of them are, but all I know is they do 180 damage.
They do a lot of damage.
They do 180 damage on cooldown.
Yes.
Which is
They're
impressive.
Like a better tracer pulse bomb that's easier to hit, does a lot of damage. And of course, this is less than 24 hours after we've had this.
They've already said that it's going to be on PTR longer.
Yes.
It just came out the gates, and they're just like, back in the gates. Back in the gates. They started the
too
race,
early,
race
too
over.
strong. Yeah.
Just that quickly.
Yeah, but she has like a really nice combination. She's got a good combination of projectile. She's got the slower projectile with her little bombs. She's got that beam that is kind of like a little execute. So if the bombs don't finish people off, her beam actually does way more damage to targets that are under 50% HP.
200 HP a second.
200 HP a second. It is pretty close range for that beam. It's not super long range, but you are also one of the most mobile heroes in the entire game, so it's not really like things can escape you.
No, nothing can escape you, because you can be in the air permanently, gliding and jumping, and then like there was a clip of, like, obviously it's training range, so we should never assume that, like, unless you're like a very, very low rank, you should never assume that the tank heroes are going to be standing still to just take the headshots and the beam, right? Like, but I just was looking at this, like, So Roadhog's just gone, huh? Like, we're just done with Roadhog. Like, this hero, like, doesn't even have to be banned, even though it is also banned to rank, but we'll talk about that later. It's more of the... This hero gets annihilated.
Yeah, there's a lot of heroes that their new design philosophy seems to just be like, just break everything, let people have fun. If everything's super broken, if we just have mass chaos, as long as it's fun for you to play, it should be a fun game in general.
That's
which is valid. It's not like tank players necessarily enjoy their lives.
Yes, or support sometimes.
Yeah.
It definitely makes it harder. It's like an interesting balance with like how since it's an FPS, but also with MOBA mechanics.
Yeah,
that it makes it so hard to like balance those roles because there's no like items to buy as well that like build. So it's like this very weird dichotomy of the two. But I just think Echo, I was blown away. Like, I like the kit. The kit's interesting.
Yes.
And I like very engaging heroes that are cool and do interesting things. And you have a lot of movement and you have the ability to make plays. But when you're so overtuned out the gate,
I mean, like, let's just talking about her ult on paper, just on paper before you get into the usage in game. Your one ult allows you to get more health, so it can save you from death, right? And then it gives you another character, so you can situationally pick whatever option you want to turn into that individual, and then you get a massive, massive increase on ultimate regeneration, which can happen multiple times. So, before we're talking about any of the other utility that this ultimate provides you, it also gives you, more than a 1-to-1 ratio on simply charging your ultimate in the first place. You use your ultimate, you can get 2 hammer downs, 3 Genji blades, things like that. You can blade multiple times, and then after that, Echo's still in the fight. Like,
yes.
She's still there.
I was watching clips of her, and then like people have also have made some hypotheticals. Like, is this the Prophet and Sinatra meta again?
Oh,
because like imagine it, because Tracer Pulse Bomb with Echo ult is literally like a 3-second cooldown. If you hit shots, it's like a 3-second cooldown.
Oh, I didn't even.
So you could have like 5 Pulse Bombs in a fight. Imagine existing with 5 Pulse Bombs, and Sinatra or Prophet are the one with them. What am I supposed to do? Am I playing Minesweeper now? I don't even know how I'm supposed to react to 5 Pulse Bombs.
It's at the point where like Diva's defense matrix is useless, because you could maybe defense matrix the first 3 Pulse Bombs, but at some point you're gonna run out. At some
point, one of the Pulse Bombs will land in this carpet bomb technique. Like, I just can't believe how incredibly strong that is. And then once you remove, because this is from a hypothetical Overwatch League standpoint. Yeah. Let's say you finally remove one of the best tracers in the game with Prophet or Sinatra after they've thrown 5 Pulse Bombs.
They're
still an Echo,
an extremely high mechanical skill hero.
I'm just like, I've seen Reinhardt's getting replicated midair as like you can do like some sort of like parachute maneuver where you go up in the air, replicate the Reinhardt, charge down, hit the pin, have shatter from the pin because you're doing damage boost for like a Mercy.
I mean, you get like 90% of your shatter from walking up and swinging once when you're on Reinhardt.
At this point, like it's more of like I don't know, like it feels like stuff is just raining from the sky. It's like a Space Invaders type of thing. Like at that point, like I can't believe like how insane the kit is, but they're already walking it back.
It makes me wonder how salty DPS players would be if you gave a support character to be this overtuned. What is the most?
I mean, we did Brigitte.
Yeah.
People lost their mind.
But Brigitte wasn't a very high skill cap hero.
Yeah, I would say she was more of like
she was really overtuned in terms of resources and just actual presence. But Echo can be the sheer number of options that you have. It's going to be really, really difficult for you to predict an Echo's next movement. You have, this is also one of the interesting things in the changes to like the design philosophy in Overwatch is that so far they seem to have limited characters to either horizontal mobility or vertical mobility. Very few have both. Pharah has fly, but her fly is really kind of janky, super easy to hit. It's not like this really fast, nimble
Also, you can't
fly.
be in the air the entire time, generally.
You can't, without expending your cooldown specifically for flight, you can't have that consistently. So, you're using your concussion in order to move horizontally, and you're using your boosters to move vertically. So Pharah, despite her state, she's still got 1 cooldown dedicated to horizontal mobility, 1 dedicated to vertical. Baptiste, vertical, Tracer, horizontal, and then they're like, Echo, you can go.
You get the Z axis.
Yeah, you get.
It's not X and Y. You have all the axes. Yeah, they're all yours.
Yeah, so
all for one.
Even Doomfist. Doomfist is a very highly mobile character. He has a cooldown for horizontal movement, a cooldown for vertical movement. Echo's just free. You go where you want when you're Echo,
and it's insane how much damage she does while doing it too, and. The thing is also the one we talked about, like that philosophy is like I've always felt that throughout the history, or the recent history of Overwatch, D.Va has sort of been like the doorstop holding back the masses of just like unbelievable chaos.
People have very, very, very frequently said that the game would be utter chaos and just completely terrible if you didn't have kind of the gatekeeper that was.
And now
D.Va.
we've added yet another person at the gate ready to bust it down without D.Va holding it back.
Yeah.
Just being like there, like, please stop banging at the door, because D.Va's probably one of the most viable counters now for Echo if she's above you constantly and shooting you in the back. It's like, not only can she mitigate the damage, but she can't mitigate the beam. She can't hit the beam, though.
Nope.
But she can at least zone them. And the 3-second boosters, everyone was like, well, this is really strong. And it's like, oh, but of course, it was for Echo. The 3-second boosters are for Echo.
Forward-looking buffs in order to counter the most overpowered DPS hero we've seen in a very long time.
It all makes sense. It all makes sense.
Team 4, they're absolute geniuses.
They're thinking in a 4D Tesseract fashion.
5D chess.
We've entered into realms of character design that I didn't know were possible. We've viewed the kaleidoscope of time.
So we don't know when Echo is actually going to hit ranked, and we don't know when it's going to hit the pro meta. But let's pretend that unchanged, Echo makes it into the Overwatch League. How does that affect things? We go enter the meta of superstars, where we basically have a carry hero, and then in terms of supporting her, definitely invest in Mercy stocks, because Mercy's going to be...
Mercy's good.
Mercy's good.
Zin's good. I mean, anything we can give her, like, the utility where she's free to roam, right? Like an orb in the Mercy pocket. Even Ana. Like, something that allows her to roam free is very, very strong. But it's also, once again, we go back to that dichotomy of, like, Overwatch between professional and casual, because I feel like I look at Echo and I'm like, this is really, really strong, and especially in a ranked environment. But I almost see in Overwatch League, it becomes easier to remove that carry ability,
certainly,
even though you have better players, because you have better divas zoning her. You also have the possibility, if you wanted, to just not pick heroes that are great to replicate. So, like, let's say you just don't play Rhyme.
Just pick worse heroes.
Just literally pick
so the
worse
Echo
heroes.
can't pick
so
good
the
heroes.
Echo can't pick good heroes with the ult.
Wow.
Now, to be said, that's probably a non-optimal strategy, I would say. But there is some sort of like something to be said about that.
Yeah, Echo definitely comes across to me as some duelist, and like almost like an assassin duelist, where her mobility plus spamming all of her cooldowns. Like if you see somebody out of position, you can very quickly fly over to them or glide or do change to an optimal hero. If your kit, just a standard Echo, isn't perfectly suited to assassinating the target that you see slightly out of position, for example, then you can just be like, I'm gonna take your kit and use that. So like this kind of assassin duelist thing being extremely strong, definitely getting a crazy value in ranked, and probably going to be an absolute nightmare for people who are playing against Smurfs. Smurfs using this in ranked are just gonna destroy everyone.
I mean, I've seen clips of people rolling out from like Nepal first on Sanctum, going from the spawn to the other spawn as they exit the door and killing a support as they walk through the first choke.
On
into
Echo
the mega
already?
On Echo, yes. I've seen it. I've seen clips of it.
What?
I've seen clips of it. It is...
Yeah,
how do you even respond to that? How do you respond to a 20-second rollout that kills you in spawn? What do you even
go Widowmaker and check?
Yeah, but Widowmaker's even worse, because we've seen I've seen clips of you can one-shot Widows with like the pulse bomb technique, and like you hit some shots.
Yeah, if you hit all of them,
you hit everything. The Widow's dead, and you're just as mobile as her. So you're in fact more mobile because the grapple has a longer cooldown.
Yeah,
it's crazy
and
good.
You can animation cancel in Echo too, so she gets that little leap forward thing, and then she flies around. If you cancel it during that leap, you can just—that's probably what the Nepal rollout tech was using.
Yeah, there's probably like a B-hop thing.
To also be fair to the developers, a lot of these techs were found out on Brigida and then subsequently canceled. Like the amount of times that they changed the Brigida shield hopping technique because people were finding like the most ridiculous geometry, and they'd be like, if you bash here at this angle, you'll go like 10,000 feet in the air.
And I imagine those changes will roll through. And also, they've already stated they'll nerf back Echo a bit. And I don't think that also she'll be the most broken thing ever within ranked, like I talked about. But they're also still, I say
most
like
broken thing in ranked or in
or not ranked, but in Overwatch League, I should say. Maybe ranked still, but I did say like, oh, we'll not pick. You just don't pick Ryan to get replicated. But then I thought about that statement again after I just said it, and my brain was like, why would you say that? You dummy! Like that doesn't make any sense, because then if you don't pick Ryan, the enemy team will pick Ryan that's playing the Echo, and they'll just run over your front line, right?
But then you just go Echo, and then you get a better Ryan anytime you want to Ryan.
But then we enter the scenario of just everyone has to play Echo all the time, right?
It's not like we've ever been in a meta like that.
Yeah, we've never had mirrors.
That has never happened.
That's unique.
That would be a first.
That is indeed a first that we've never have. Well, on the topic of heroes and hero pools, then.
Yes.
Since we've talked about Echo and we touched on it a bit, ranked versus Overwatch League hero pools.
Yeah, so the bans that we had previously for ranked, the notable ones included that they had 2 supports. So they had the Ana and the Moira were both banned. And then this week, the ranked ban came out. Their Doomfist is banned. Brigitte is banned. And then they had 2 tanks banned this week. So this is what I was talking about earlier, where they seem to be favoring the DPS role, is that Roadhog and Sigma. 2 tanks have been banned this week. So that being in contrast to the Overwatch League, which currently has Winston, Sombra, Soldier, and Lucio banned.
A big contrast.
A huge contrast.
And it also just a weird violation of what we thought was the basic laws of hero pools, because it's like physics.
Yes.
If I were to randomly wake up one day and then float into the stratosphere, I'd be like, this is odd. I'd probably be saying other things. I'd probably be feeling other things, but I would definitely think this is a conundrum I'm in.
Yes.
And I feel the same when I look at the hero pool difference between Overwatch League and Ranked, because last week, they banned 2 supports, like with the Ana and the Moira, and this week we banned 2 tanks.
Yes.
While Overwatch League has maintained 1 tank, 1 support ban, and 2 DPS the entire time. And there's never anything said about this. I'm just walking through the door each day, and there's a whole. It's like my entire. It's like if I walked into the studio today, Jayne, and our producers had moved all the cameras around, shifted the table to the window, and I'd be like, "Well, what's going on here?" And it's like, "Well, you're just gonna do like an L sit for today's studio shoot What's happening?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense consistency wise.
And we have no announcement or no explanation as to why this is different.
No.
I'm one who's kind of traditionally been quite vocally frustrated about the difference even between the patches. We've had at different points during competitive Overwatch's history, we've had a different patch for the Overwatch League, Overwatch Contenders, Overwatch Open Division, and Overwatch Ranked all at the same time. It has happened before where there was just everybody's playing on a different patch, and that seems chaotic, and me who likes things organized be like, just make everything the same. One of the things that I realized from talking about that stuff with developers before is that they really do have quite a different audience separation between the people who play hardcore ranked and the people who play Overwatch kind of the casual.
Yeah, like quick play and arcade.
Yeah.
And things
So
like
it's
that.
kind of, people talk about the competitive Overwatch subreddit, for example. I remember this statistic from last year. I don't even remember when the stat came up, but the Overwatch League guys were talking about how the competitive Overwatch subreddit makes up the people who are on that subreddit make up vastly less than even 1% of the viewer of the Overwatch League. So there's going to be the very vocal minority, but they don't really come across as the people who. They're not representative of all the people who watch the Overwatch League. And there really is a surprising number of people who only watch Overwatch League and don't actually play. And at the same time, there is a very, very sizable group of the player base that only plays Overwatch. And they play Overwatch casually. They play it in quick play. They play it in arcade. And some of them don't even know the Overwatch League exists. So there is, it's really only for the people who play ranked quite consistently and watch the Overwatch League quite consistently that makes this rather frustrating, but those people are in the minority. And if you're watching this show, you're probably in the very small minority of dedicated Overwatch fans. So hello and greetings to you. But so it's less of a problem for the people who are not in the 1% of the hardcore Overwatch players, viewers, etc. But for those of us who are that, it's strange, and the fact that we have no explanation on top of that makes it even stranger, like floating into the stratosphere levels.
It's very well, and I feel like even for the casual audience that even plays ranked, because there are people that play ranked that aren't really competing either, like they're not playing
yes,
open
they
division.
just like the rules.
They just they just play ranked. It would still be a weird swap up because we're going from 1 week 2 supports banned to 2 tanks banned.
Yes,
and I know
if you're a DPS player though, you don't even notice.
Yeah, I mean, and you just got Echo coming out soon, so you're just like, everything's hunky dory. But also if you're a DPS player and you were, some people rejoice about this because now since Roadhog's banned this week, it's like finally, I don't have an ult battery hero flanking every 2 seconds and just getting rolled and smoked and donating a cajillion points of ult charge. So
I mean, if you're Echo, you can just get whole hog in a single take a breather.
That's true. You could just do one cooldown.
You are an ult battery just for you for once instead of other people.
So it's inconsistent. And since we're also, we talked about that there is a difference, but we are focused on the Overwatch League in a bit. And we have to say from that perspective as well, from pro players, they have vented about it to me and, publicly about it's so weird to not be able to even practice the same, not even the same rule set, but like, you know, you can't, like, let's say like right now this week we have Sigma banned and ranked, but Sigma very likely is going to be played in the Overwatch League.
Yeah.
Not this weekend, obviously, but you know, perhaps the next weekend. And that's what the meta was looking like, was that there's going to be a lot more double shield. And you can't practice Sigma.
Yeah.
You can't practice
Not in
Sigma.
ranked.
Not in ranked.
Counterpoint being ranked has never really been a good training environment, you know, for the league itself. You know, there's you know, I know quite a few people in the league who use it kind of just as like raw mechanical aim, or maybe to practice their heroes. But again, if the hero that you're trying to practice is just straight up banned, that's a different story. But yes, you know, it gives credence. There have been multiple attempts throughout the years to try and get things like the ESEA or S League, you know, like the Overwatch League pugs for pro players. Maybe that's another feasible option to try and replace this lack of training resources. I don't know. It's
I think it's been made clear in terms of like where, I mean, but you know, I also said like I don't think we were ever gonna have hero bans, and look where we're at. These aren't technically hero bans, but they're pools. But you know, it's essentially
they're very much different from what I think most people expected hero bans to be. I think people expected some agency over the decision of what is being banned, and again, so we don't even have kind of a philosophy presented from Team 4, Jeff Kaplan, anyone else, about why they're doing things the way they are. But if you were Jeff Kaplan, what do you think that the way that bans should be working? We should have it unified between Overwatch League and Overwatch Ranked? Should we be banning based on experimental, like a very, you know, ban this to see what happens, or ban this because we think that'll change the meta, or have something like have the machine do it, relegate it to the computers, just, you know, random based off pick rate, or just ban the most played to vary things up? If you were in charge of Overwatch development, what would you do?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would demand that all the current writers for Overwatch would carry me out onto a palanquin, a golden palanquin out in every developer update. That would be the first thing I would do. And then I would dangle like a sheet in front of all the people that like lore and be like, this is the lore for the new hero. And I'd throw it into a fireplace. But, you know, the actual thing I would do as Jeff Kaplan is I would realistically, if they want to keep it different, right? Because it's very clear even though the game has changed a lot, fundamentally still throughout every decision, there's been a clear divergence in competitive versus casual development every time. And if they're going to keep it that way, which, you know, you can argue the pros and cons for, you can argue pros, like you get to appease both sides, you sort of appease both sides, but not really, you know. Cons, you have a very inconsistencies between the game and what the viewers watch in the highest level versus what they play in the lowest level. But if you're going to keep it that way, just if you know, what happens if next week if we have 3 DPS heroes banned? I'm like, am I going to get an explanation? I would just like an explanation as to why, right? Yeah. It's really just that simple. It's like, I think that's like the bare minimum of what can be done, of just saying like, here's why we did it. And I know they're probably, you know, as a team, and as someone that's spoken to members of Team 4, and I know you've spoken to members of Team 4, is that a lot of times they feel like when if they put out a decision and they explain it, you still get a horde of people being angry no matter what.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right? And like that's like the no-win situation sometimes as a developer or as a public figure in general, is like no matter what you do, they're going to be angry. There's going to be
people who
mad.
Absolutely love you and think you can do no wrong, and there's also people who are just going to hate you and think that you're just the worst person in existence.
So and that's why it feels like at some point, like we're over here discussing like all this stuff, but you know, and then I'm going to come back to just be very boilerplate of like reductionist of like, well, you know, no matter what they do, they're going to be, someone's going to think they're wrong. There's going to be someone that has dressed up as Soldier 76 for the past 2 years and has lived Soldier 76 and is like, where is my soldier lore? Where is it?
Didn't Michael Chu,
he left recently.
He just left. So it's kind of surprising. One of the main writers and lore writers for Overwatch and Overwatch 2 departed. So even before Overwatch 2 came out, maybe he's already written everything. I know they have things planned out quite far in advance, but he's on to bigger and better things. So maybe those who do like the lore, which is actually a pretty sizable.
No, it is. It's a sizable portion. We have a very focused mindset here. We have our lens of Overwatch League, but it's. And as someone that also came from Team Fortress 2, it was exactly like that as well. There was
Team Fortress 2 had lore?
Yeah, there was lore. And also in the fact that there was a huge split divergence between the competitive and the non-competitive community.
Okay.
That too. Because like, you know, you would, for every, and because Team Fortress 2 had like an ESEA league style league like CSGO does, and that was like 0.0000. It was like how many, it was like essentially the percentage of like how many germs don't die to like GermX, essentially, of how many people are like playing Team Fortress 2 competitive compared to the casual base. And then there's like a cajillion people named Putis Pow 69 that are in like a pub game that are like emoting. So that's sort of a situation we similarly have with Overwatch in a way. And so we went on a tangent. I feel like I don't know how I've gotten to this
I'm looking at my show notes trying to see where we can actually pull ourselves off.
But the point, I guess, to go back to actually answer your question is just tell us why it happens.
Yes.
That's really it. That's
communication, even if you do get flamed.
Yeah, even if you get flamed, because you're going to get flamed regardless.
I mean, you're still going to get paid regardless.
Yeah, so. Exactly. And I feel as a coach as well, as a former coach, and your experience with that, you would also think that it has to be insanely frustrating from like that perspective. Like you were practicing one way, and then you want your players to, because coaches do tell players like, hey, I want you to do this in ranked or something. Yeah. But you just couldn't. Like, that has to be insanely frustrating as a coach, right? Like, because then that's like a lot of progress that you just won't be able to get for that player.
Yeah, there was a lot of, there's a lot of different ways that you try and build up better practice routines for players, having like B teams play your contenders team or things like that. But having ranked, ranked is a very legitimate training resource for like pro players.
Especially for players that, because I'm assuming like probably at some point in your career, you've had players that have been sitting down and not playing for a period of time, right?
I mean, every team has that.
Exactly. And, I'm sure you or, Arrow, when you're working with Arrow or things like that, like you guys have had to say like to a player that probably isn't going to play anytime soon, like I want you to practice this in ranked. But if the entire system is different, how are they supposed to get any value at all from a player that is sitting, right? It just removes an avenue that potentially was there. It's just gone now, which can be insanely frustrating, I feel, if you're a player that is also not even going to be playing necessarily.
Yeah, and especially if you had the point where people were on the bench specifically for certain backups or as specialists, and now the potential for those types of players being useful has been also reduced, not only with the hero bans happening in the Overwatch ranked mode, but also in the Overwatch League. If you're picked up to be like a Doomfist specialist and Doomfist is just banned, or the supporting heroes that you need in order for Doomfist to be popped off are banned, there's less chance of having those subs being useful in the long term. And I'm not sure how many cases it's been, but we've had a pretty significant number of people who have been in the Overwatch League either as a substitute or a specialist who simply never got playtime and then left the league.
I don't know who that could be.
You don't know.
Don't know.
I
wouldn't know anyone like that. But the point is, but also, wouldn't you think that with this addition as sort of like a wrapping topic on the thing of hero pools, wouldn't you think that also hero pools would allow these players that weren't necessarily playing before the chance to also maybe get playtime that wasn't available? Because before we had metas that would last for like a year.
Yeah, and very, very established metas.
Yeah, and so wouldn't you think that now maybe you would actually see a greater chance also conversely? Or would you think it sort of evens out because they might get more playtime opportunities occasionally, but then the next week then they're completely locked out again, right? It does like even out?
It's going to very much depend on the teams themselves. Each one, when you do have these very, very refined metas where each and every single tiny thing has been determined, you can get to the point where like Dallas Fuel famously season 1 stage 4, they were playing Teemo on the Widowmaker and AKM also on the Widowmaker. They weren't even playing them on different heroes, but they were setting them in and out just specifically based off of AKM and Teemo's personal play styles on the hero. So I think that having these really refined metas actually gives you more room for substitutes because you can have them, you can more control the circumstances in which they actually play. Whereas when things are in the absolute chaos that is the 1 week hero pools, at that point you're going to be focusing more on the macro level stuff and the adaptability. And I think with that strategy, it's probably best to focus more on like a core group of people, or do kind of like what Seoul Dynasty did with the A team, B team sort of thing, and having them focus on different aspects. But having specific substitutes or specialists within a 6-man group with how fluid and adaptable the hero pools are in the Overwatch League, I actually think it decreases the likelihood of them seeing play.
Speaking of the Seoul Dynasty, their games are not happening this weekend. We talked about it in the sort of the intros, like, are we going to have games in the Overwatch League? And the games got canceled again. It was sort of we heard last night very late minute notice because the governor of California just said, stay at home. It's a shelter warning. Like everyone in California must stay at home.
The entire state of California, except for essential work people, have to stay at home. And of course, as much as we would like to argue to the contrary, Overwatch Esports is not an essential service, which is unfortunate. Despite being an online tournament, we had originally the tournaments, the homestands were canceled because they were in arenas, and now we've moved into online play, and we discussed the merits of online play on our Tuesday show there. But even when we are doing online play, both the studio production members have to actually go into a studio, into a switch room to actually produce the broadcast, and the players themselves are going to be playing in their training facilities. So even though they're all inside being, classic nerd stuff, they are still playing in training facilities.
Those are e-athletes.
E-athletes. My sincerest apologies.
E-athletes.
But the stay-at-home order still applies to people coming in and playing on their teams. Do you actually get to the point, like if it gets bad enough or this social distance quarantine stuff goes on so long, is it actually feasible for people to play from their home computers? At that point, how do you even control from hacking, quality control? There's so many more issues the further and further you divorce yourself from the more standard professional setups that we've seen in the league so far. And
also an addendum to that is that the broadcast, you brought up, the broadcast team can't even get into the studio because of this. I mean, they could theoretically if they wanted to ignore the order, but they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that, right?
Yeah.
And so they have to change up their setup, and this came pretty last minute because they were expecting to do because think about this too, is that the fact that the league has changed its whole production paradigm twice in 2 weeks. We went from a homestand model to online where the teams would be playing in practice facilities and the broadcast would be in the studio in LA to now we can't even go to the studio. And teams might be able to go to the production, to their practice arenas necessarily. And so I'm guessing, which is something I think we're seeing in the LEC and the LCS, is that the broadcast will be in their bedrooms. So we're going full Alienware monthly melee style with ZP and Slasher.
Back to our roots.
Yeah, we're having the ficuses come on in, and we're all going to be talking into them. But that requires still yet another pivot in production.
Yes.
And you have to, and also there's still a layer of quality control. You don't want to be in the Overwatch League, you don't tune into the broadcast and you see Brennan or Sideshow or something talking into a webcam mic being today, you don't want to do that. You don't want to be hearing that sort of audio quality, and they have a really basic, they're using their iPhone as a camera or something, you don't want to be at that sort of production quality. There's still steps that can be taken to standardize the production for the broadcast team, giving them equipment. I think that's what's also being done for, like I said, the LEC and LCS, and it just wasn't ready to pivot that quickly. So the games have been postponed again this weekend, but supposedly I would think they're coming back on.
Ready that quickly. The only thing they could have done is do it that in the announcement from the state of LA came out at something 7 p.m. last night, I believe it was, and then the Overwatch League actually had an announcement posted, if memory serves correctly, at 9:20 p.m. at night, depending on your time zone. But we actually do have that announcement on screen there if you want to take a look at it.
And they probably had to have a very quick meeting, I bet. John Spector and Pete and all of them, they all had to, they probably saw that announcement and they're ooh, okay, well, I guess we have to talk about this. And they obviously are going to decide they're not going to, it would be unwise to be a league that suddenly chooses to ignore the stay-at-home order from the governor of California, I would think.
It's, it's... And you mentioned that you saw Outrage, which actually surprised me.
Yeah, I saw people. I mean, because it's just the internet, right?
But but I've been. I use the internet as well.
It wasn't tons of outrage, right? Yeah. But you would see comments but it was already online. Why are they canceling? And it's well, you do realize it's not that simple. Just because it's online, they still have to be a production and a broadcast.
Is a series of tubes.
And obviously, there are probably people that are well, just give us the replay viewer and let us watch the games as they're played. But it's
they can't even play the game. It's not that they just can't broadcast. It's
the
players can't even play.
Is that even a league anymore? If we're not if we don't have a broadcast that we can put plugs into and put ad reads or sponsored segments or have a broadcast team, at this point we're just YouTube. We're just YouTube watching games. I think
people don't really understand all of the kind of little things that go into the production of the Overwatch League. People that there's quite a few people who don't know that the pro players, they don't bring their own equipment. It's always shown with them walking their equipment on stage, for example. But when you're a pro player, and I'm sure you can attest to this, you have to tell the league what equipment you want to use, and then they go and buy that factory direct They put it in a Pelican case, and you take it out of that case right before you go onto stage, and as soon as you're done, you walk off stage, you put it right back in the Pelican case. So they control the equipment, so you can't have any, because there was a case a few years ago where they had hacks not even loaded into the computer or the hard drive, but into the firmware of the devices that they were using. So now they control devices. They have, in order to actually make sure that the player's settings are correct, they just swap the physical hard drive. So each player has their own hard drive. And, all of these regulations in for cheating and making sure that the league actually functions and doesn't have all of these hiccups, all of those are just completely out the window. And it's understandable, when you can't, in the face of, the crisis that's going on kind of worldwide, you can't have these at what point are kind of considered luxuries. And maybe at this point, do you take the percentage chance of a pro in the Overwatch League? If you do end up to the point where players have to play on their own equipment at their own houses, is that an acceptable risk? Probably, in order to make sure that you can still actually have broadcast and production, yes, but it opens up a completely dynamic and a lot of questions that we haven't had to ask since the beginning of the Overwatch League. We have to start asking them and considering them, and a lot of those factors, since they haven't even been thought of for what is the third season now. There's a lot of things, and I don't envy the job of the Overwatch League, but so far I'm actually really impressed with how dynamic they've been. I'm sure at this point we've actually probably had more games canceled than played.
Yes.
But the rate at which they're rescheduling and adapting is really kind of impressive.
It's impressive. And if they manage to get a turnaround next week of okay, the games are ongoing and we had to shift our entire scope of production again, then that's, now we will have to prepare ourselves. We'll have to brace ourselves, though, I think, is that if it does go to a setup where the broadcast is going to be at the home base where the casters are in their apartments with some sort of provided audio and video equipment, right? It might get a little scuffed. And this is going to be also for every other esport, too. And so we're going to have to come together in these trying times, Overwatch League community, and understand that not everything's going to be perfect. We're making do, and we should be grateful that at least we can still have games at all.
Yes.
When if you're a fan of the NBA or the NFL or things like that, you don't get games. You just don't. You won't get them. Well, at least in Overwatch or any other game like that, you might still be able to see your favorite players and your favorite teams play. Mm-hmm. And it's going to take some time to make it happen, and that's just the necessity of the situation. Well, that's all the time we have for today here on Contested. We are going to be back next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Central and also the following Friday, 2 shows a week. Don't forget, on NVTV. And hopefully we'll still be in the studio. Maybe we'll be in our bedroom doing this as well, Jayne.
Yeah, I'll get my webcam ready just in case we have to broadcast from our bedrooms. But as always, make sure to comment, like, and subscribe if you enjoyed the show. Specifically, comment what you guys think about Echo. We'll be reading your comments at the start of every new show, what you guys thought, asking you a question each week. So let us know what you think about Echo. Too broken, too overpowered, happy she's a DPS. Definitely not salty about not being a support. Either way, hope you guys enjoyed today's show. We'll see you next Tuesday. Have a great weekend.